Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 26 team selection where I'm almost definitely making an assistant manager transfer. If you enjoyed today's video, please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So I'm recording this early on Thursday morning, so Game Week 25 has finally come to an end. So let's briefly review Game Week 25 before moving on to Game Week 26 and looking, as I said, in particular at that assistant manager transfer and whether it's worth making. But I did manage to get 100 plus points in back-to-back weeks. Obviously, it has been back-to-back doubles, and I've had the assistant manager chip active for both of those weeks. So I would have hoped for green arrows because I know later when other people use the chip, they might be the ones that are getting green arrows. However, I will absolutely take it. So yeah, 103 points. That takes me up to 71k. I'd love to know down below in the comments, how many points did you score? What is your current rank? And also let me know what your target rank is as well. I'm actually approaching my target rank, which is top 50k. But I know that I've been quite lucky in recent weeks, and it can quite easily go in the other direction. I felt very unlucky at the start of the season when Haaland scored 11 goals in 5 games. And I now feel quite lucky at the moment when the likes of Wood and Mateta are doing especially well. And a lot of my rank threats every week aren't really delivering. So yeah, I've definitely been lucky in recent weeks, but that's what you need in FPL. And I'm pretty happy with where the rank's at considering where we were earlier on in the season. So yeah, 71k. This week, it was really just the assistant manager chip obviously gave me a boost, and that's what you would hope when you play the chip. The Liverpool assets did deliver, but Salah's owned by so many people, it actually hurts my rank when he does anything, and Trent is pretty highly owned as well. And then it was Wood and Mateta. Outside of that, I believe the rest of the team blanked, indeed. So with Slot, it's a weird one, right? Because what Slot has got me is 15 and 13, so 28 points in 2 weeks. I would count that as a relative success. The reason it doesn't feel like a success as much is because those that went for Moyes and Emery are up on points. So I've not actually sat and done the maths properly, but I think it's 8 points up overall because you got 22, obviously, Moyes in Game Week 24, and then Emery outscored Slot, I believe, by 1 point in Game Week 25. So I think they're 8 points up. But then I have to also recognise that those went from Moyes to Emery also used a transfer. If we value a transfer at 4 points, because you might have to take a hit later having used that transfer, then they're probably about 4 points up overall. So I can take that. And by the way, massive shout out to those of you that took the risk twice going for Moyes and Emery. I didn't see both teams getting a result against Liverpool. And in all honesty, both Everton and Villa could have nicked it as well. So they could have even got the win. This does show why it could be worth chasing the table bonus. But as I've said in recent weeks, like if you look in Game Week 24, a few people went for Potter against Brentford because that was a table bonus. They lost 1-0 West Ham, and that would have been a 0-pointer for Potter. So it is sometimes worth chasing the bonus, but if you don't get that bonus, it can result in a really, really poor score. But overall, if I look in isolation, getting 28 points from Slot in 2 weeks, I would say it is a relative success. And obviously, Trent massively outscoring the likes of Konate and Van Dijk was also really nice. So we got the clean sheet in the first game. Getting that early sub was very, very lucky. And then also getting the goal in the second game just before he was subbed off for Bradley. Bradley then went off with an injury as well. So maybe Trent's minutes looking pretty secure moving forward. But I think to get 13 points from Trent, that might be the luckiest bit of the game week for me. Because yeah, that early sub with the clean sheet and then getting subbed just after he scored. And the goal was a deflected shot as well. But Trent's absolutely brilliant in FPL. He always has been. The amount that the man gets forward, he's going to be involved in chances like that. Salah's absolutely ridiculous. Just what more can you say? Also, I didn't even realise Gabriel clean sheet. That is another return that I had in my team. And then, yeah, the Wood and Mateta show for me is what it basically came down to in Game Week 25. And it has since back Game Week 18 when I brought them both in. So there we go. No more needs to be said about Game Week 25. 103 points all out. Green arrow up to 71k. Let's now take a look at Game Week 26. So moving on to Game Week 26, I currently have 3 free transfers and 0.2 million in the bank. I'm yet to make a transfer, and as always, I'll probably make the transfers on the deadline stream, and it is a Friday deadline once again. So the deadline stream will start at 4:30 PM UK time, which means there'll be a deadline decisions video live on Friday morning. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, please do consider subscribing. I'm trying to hit 150,000 subscribers by the end of the season, which is very optimistic, but I would love if we could get there. So if you're not yet subscribed, please do consider doing so. And just make sure that you don't miss the Friday deadline. And then after that, the next deadline's actually Tuesday. So we have Friday, Tuesday, and then there's over a week off. I think it's like a week and a half until the deadline after that. So the deadlines are a little bit weird, so just make sure that you don't miss them. But yeah, as of right now, 3 free transfers. I could absolutely, when you see the team at the end, it is rollable. I don't necessarily think that you should just roll for the sake of rolling, though. Even though I am trying to deal with blank game week 29, and my team's not in a brilliant position for that, I equally think there are points to be had over the coming game weeks as well. So it's finding that balance between being patient and making sure you prioritise your transfers in dealing with upcoming blank, but also not missing the points in front of you. And that's the debate that I'm currently having with myself right now over the assistant manager chip, as we'll discuss throughout this video. But let's start with Pickford. Nice and easy. Manchester United at home is a good fixture. Everton are playing very well. I did think under Moyes at first, they went a little bit more attacking. And that first 1 or 2 games, they did concede a few chances. And I was like, ooh, maybe they're going to be more attacking, but not as solid defensively. But they're just doing both areas of the game incredibly well. Everton are one of the best teams in the league at the moment. They really are. And every single time I watch them play, I'm pretty impressed. So Pickford feels like a very good option for this week. And I have to sadly, and this is difficult as a United fan, but view Manchester United for what they are. Manchester United are currently a bottom half of the table team. And I would say that's even generous to say that. They're about 14th, 15th if you look at teams in the league, right? So this is a good fixture. Like, if this was Wolves at home, I'd be saying, yes, a great fixture. It's the same for Manchester United. In fact, it's probably better because United just don't have many great players in the attack. And with Ahmad out as well, this feels even better. After United, Pickford's then got Brentford, Wolves, West Ham. Obviously, West Ham being in game week 29. Then in game week 30 and beyond, Pickford's fixtures really do turn for the worse. I'm currently looking at a wildcard between game week 30 and game week 32. Ideally, I'd like to wildcard in 32, and we'll discuss more of this in the coming weeks. But that does mean that I might have to play Jordan Pickford for a couple of rubbish games in 30 and 31. What I'm basically saying is Pickford will definitely be staying for the next 4 weeks, and I'm pretty happy to have him. When we move on to the defence, I'm also okay with 3 of the 5 defenders. So Munoz and Robinson, I love the pair of them. Most weeks I've been playing Munoz, and this week I'm planning on doing it again, just because I have Jean-Philippe Mateta. And if I've got Mateta, and by the way, little spoiler alert, I might even get Glasner, I don't probably want to play Robinson then. I'm clearly at that point backing Crystal Palace. And so yeah, at the moment I'm starting Munoz. In isolation, Robinson might be a slightly better pick this week. They're both very attacking. Robinson's at home. Fulham are probably a slightly stronger defence. And I'd say they're probably equal attacks. So yeah, I might lean, if I was just looking purely in isolation, at Robinson being slightly better than Munoz. But I like to try and put all of my eggs in one basket and not hedge my bets too much in FPL. And at the moment, I'm trying to put all of my eggs in the Crystal Palace basket. So yeah, Munoz, I'm not expecting too much from, but he has been so brilliant across the last 5 or 6 weeks. He's got a couple of clean sheets in there, a couple of attacking returns as well. So very happy to have him. I know that he blanks in 29, but he's got Ipswich at home in 28. So my plan is to either sell him after the Game Week 28 game, going into Game Week 29, or what I've looked at quite a lot is actually having him as one of my 3 benched players, which means that I've got him in place for Southampton away in Game Week 30. That's the difficult thing with Crystal Palace. If you're not free hitting in blank Game Week 29, they've got Ipswich blank Southampton. So it's what you do with, I've got Munoz and Mateta. I probably can't keep both of them, but I'd like to keep at least one of them for that great fixture in Game Week 30. The alternative option is that you just wildcard in Game Week 30, and then you can bring those Palace assets back in, and that is something that I will consider. Gabriel is absolutely fine. I think Arsenal still looked brilliant defensively. For all of their offensive woes and injuries and issues, the defence always looks brilliant. And I think this is a good chance for a clean sheet here for Gabriel. And then I basically just need to decide, do I want to start Trent or Robinson? I just said for all of the reasons that I'm currently backing Trent, right? Because I'm backing Crystal Palace. So do I really want to go out there and start Robinson? But I think Robinson against Crystal Palace at home is a much better fixture than Trent against City away. The thing is with Trent, he's getting 60 to 65 minutes at the moment, which is a good thing because Liverpool aren't necessarily conceding as much in those times. He can come off, then they concede. And could you see against City it being a little bit cagey in the first 60, Trent then coming off, maybe banking the clean sheet? The only concern is with Connor Bradley going off injured, if Bradley's not fit and available, will he want to bring on Quansah around 60, 65 minutes? Maybe he'll be less interested in doing so. And also, Trent is building up his fitness. It's a lot of rambling to say I don't really love the fixture for Trent here, but it is Trent. He's very attacking and going off early could actually be a positive for him. So I'd love to know down below in the comments, do you agree with the notion of, listen, I'm back in Palace, therefore I bench Robinson, or do you think I should start Robinson ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold? So yeah, I think basically Pickford, Munoz, Gabriel, Robinson, I'm very happy with his assets. Trent I would quite like to sell at some point because he's a lot of money, but I don't really want to sell him before that Southampton at home game. It's the same with Munoz. So Crystal Palace and Liverpool both blank in 29. But in 28, they've got Ipswich at home and Southampton at home. So I just don't want to sell Trent before that Southampton game. The only other defender is, of course, Van den Berg. Unfortunately, picked up an injury. I've not yet seen an update on his injury. I'm kind of hoping he is available for 29, just in case I run out of transfers and just want to play him. Because he's got Bournemouth away, right? It's not a good fixture. I'm almost definitely going to have a Bournemouth attacker. And he doesn't have any attacking threat, really. So I don't think he'll do anything. But you just never know. And again, if I do run out of transfers, I'd like the opportunity, at least, to play him rather than take a hit. But I'd probably like to sell him anyway. Probably to someone like Howson. So as of right, I don't think the defence is in a great position by any means, considering 2 players blank in 29. One of them's injured. And the other 2 players don't even have necessarily a great fixture in 29. But as of right now, I just don't see myself using a defender transfer. I feel like I've got other issues that I need to sort. So that's the defence. Let's move on to the midfield. So I'm going to keep it nice and easy with the midfield. Salah and Palmer will not be sold. Salah is absolutely incredible. However, around blank game week 29, there is a possibility to sell Salah to get Haaland. I would rather sell Palmer to get Haaland, but if you sell Palmer to get Haaland and try and keep Salah and Haaland together, then building a bench boost for double game week 33, which will be the most popular week to bench boost and probably the best, is very difficult to build a good bench boost with Salah and Haaland. So something's got to give. The bench boost has to give. First is the first option, which just means your bench boost isn't as good as you want. You've not got the strongest bench boost overall. Or you go without Haaland, but he's probably going to have a double in 33, and City could start to turn it on from here to the end of the season. Or you go without Salah. A lot of people will start to point to Marmoush, and Marmoush could be an excellent asset, but he is not Erling Haaland. And again, if Erling Haaland starts to go on a nice run, I can guarantee you're going to want him. And I do think he could end up being the best captaincy option in both 29 and 33. So these are the things I'm thinking about, but I'm definitely not selling Salah before Southampton at home. So at least 3 more weeks, and I'll probably end up bottling it and keeping Salah or trying to find an alternative route. On Palmer, I'm not impressed with Palmer. I'm not really liking what I'm seeing from him and Chelsea, but Southampton and Leicester after Villa. Honestly, the number 1 YouTube comment for me, and I read every comment, so please feel free to comment. The number 1 comment this week is probably that people are selling Palmer. You couldn't pay me enough money in the world to sell Palmer before Southampton and Leicester at home. Chelsea have been rubbish. Palmer's been rubbish from an FPL perspective. But it's Southampton and Leicester. I'm even looking at Enzo Fernandez and thinking he's not a bad option for Southampton and Leicester. And Enzo Fernandez stinks as an FPL asset. That just goes to show how good those fixtures are overall. So I am absolutely categorically, even if Palmer stinks it up and gets a 1-pointer against Villa, I will absolutely not be selling him before those 2. I could be selling him as early as game week 29. I know he's got a fixture against Arsenal, but if I desperately want Haaland in 29 and I don't want to sell Salah, I have even looked at the possibility of selling Cole Palmer in 29. But more realistically, what I'm looking at is around when I wildcard between 30 and 32, Palmer could be the make weight, if I can afford it with my team value, to go out there and get Erling Haaland. So basically, Salah and Palmer for the next few weeks will absolutely be staying in my team, but from 29 and beyond, they are both on the chopping block if I want to go out there and get Erling Haaland. So that's the situation with the 2 premiums. And then on Brian Mbeumo, he's not been delivering the points in recent weeks. Let's just say that. I said he's got expected liveliness, is the way that it reminds me of Rafinha in the past. They used to always say, Rafinha's looked really lively, he's really involved. Also a left-footed right winger. He always just be involved in the action, but never deliver the points. And listen, Brian Mbeumo does deliver the points, but in recent weeks, he's been there or thereabouts and not really been doing it. Is probably enough to put me off captaincy. Like if Brian Mbeumo had been scoring quite a few goals recently, then going into Leicester away, I'd be a lot more tempted. But even Brentford themselves haven't quite been at it the last few weeks. So I don't want to take too much of form into account because Brian Mbeumo loves games against weaker opposition. I do think this is a game where he could do really, really well. And you would expect Brentford to score goals. But there might be enough to put me off. I think he scored 1 goal in the last 5, and that was a penalty. Not only was that a penalty, it was a penalty that had to be taken twice, and he missed the first one. So we could be looking at a missed penalty and 0 returns in 5 weeks. So I just think Brian Mbeumo is not quite there for me right now. That doesn't mean I want to sell him. I'm very happy to keep him in my team, but probably not enough to trust him with the armband. And it's probably the same reason there's not enough for me to trust Palmer with the armband, which basically means my 2 options are Salah or probably Isak. And Isak playing against the good Forest team. It makes me keep coming back to Salah captain. I would love to know down below in the comments, who are you captaining for Game Week 26? Because I don't think this is an easy one. I'll probably discuss it in more detail in the deadline decisions video. So again, subscribe, make sure to check out tomorrow's video. I'll look into it a bit more detail. I want to look at home and away form. I want to look at the underlying data. I want to look at the amount of shots in the box in recent weeks. I'll delve into it in a bit more detail, but do I think that Salah is the standout captain this week? No, not in a million years is he the standout. But do I see another standout? And this is the thing that I've always said with Mohamed Salah and with popular captains. If I'm going to back against an Erling Haaland in incredible form, or back against a Salah that is playing the way he is, he's almost at 300 points already, which is a record-breaking season, I need to see a lot more from someone. Like, if Isak had Brentford at home, or something like that, a slightly weaker opposition, then I would say, absolutely, I'm going to back against Salah. Or if Palmer was the one with Leicester away, I'd probably do it. But every player that you can choose instead has either got a slightly tricky fixture or they're slightly out of form. And then I'll come back to Salah. Yes, City looked much better against Newcastle, but then they go and concede a few goals to again, it is Real Madrid, but they seem very inconsistent at the moment. And I still don't think their defensive fragilities are completely gone. So I just keep coming back. It's so boring to just saying Salah. But if there is a week to back against him over the next 3, this is the one. I mean, you could go against, and I may well do so, you could go for Palmer against Southampton next week. But then obviously in 28, you're going to captain Salah. And if you've still got Salah in 30 against Everton at home, you're probably going there. So this does feel like a really good opportunity to back against Salah. But also, is it the wisest idea? I don't know. The only other thing to discuss then is I've got Rodgers and Enzo, and I don't particularly like either of them. I would like to sell the pair. And just so that you know, it's not recency bias or a knee-jerk, I was discussing before Rodgers even started Game Week 25, so way before the deadline, that I probably would look to sell Rodgers in 26 or 27. And so this isn't just a knee-jerk in response to him blanking in both games in Game Week 25. He's on 8 yellow cards, which is the first thing. So he picks up 2 more before Game Week 32, and he gets suspended for 2 games. I don't love the fixtures over the next 5. It's Chelsea, which is fine. Then it's Palace, Brentford, and they're not awful, but then it's a blank, then it's Brighton. 3 of those 4 games are away, and there's a blank in there as well. And overall, his output, his underlying data, none of it's as good as the Bournemouth midfielders. And again, not a knee-jerk. If you've been watching my videos in Game Week 25, I said before the deadline, I would rather buy Dango Kluivert and Semenyo than Rodgers. Not only because I thought that they could do equally well in Game Week 25, but I knew that from 26 onwards, a transfer you'd probably want to make is Rodgers to a Bournemouth mid. So at the moment, that is something that is very much on my mind for Game Week 26. I could really just start Rodgers against Chelsea, save the transfer again, and then assess ahead of 27. But I would just much rather a Bournemouth midfielder against Wolves at home than I would Rodgers against Chelsea at home. And this is a transfer I'm going to have to make anyway, because Rodgers is blanking in 29. I'm not going to keep him on the bench. I'm going to sell him. So if I'm going to sell him anyway, I've got the free transfers to do it, and I prefer the Bournemouth assets, I'd probably just move there. I do also think Ethan Nwaneri is a great option at 4.6 million. I just think I'd prefer the Bournemouth mid slightly. So that's the situation there. A lot of people will say, why on earth are you selling Morgan Rodgers before Enzo Fernandez? It comes back to a little bit of what I said about Van den Berg in that he does have a fixture, Enzo Fernandez, in 29. I plan on selling both of them. So I would really ideally not start Enzo Fernandez in 29. But if I do run out of transfers and I decide I still want to play my free hit, I still don't want to use my free hit, but maybe I don't want to take a -8, -12, Enzo Fernandez will play against Arsenal and he'll probably get 1 or 2 points. So it's at least a couple of extra points you would expect that. And you never know, again, could he get a corner assist or could he get a lucky deflected goal? I just think the fact that he actually plays in 29 probably means I should keep him ahead of Morgan Rodgers. Also, he's a better first sub, I would say, over the next 2 weeks against Southampton and Leicester at home. I probably won't start him in either of those, but to have him as a first sub with back-to-back home games against the 2 worst defences in the league, that feels pretty okay. So as of right now, I'm actually planning on selling Rodgers rather than Enzo, despite that probably not being a popular move. But I just think, again, with an eye on 29. So that's the situation with the midfield. Salah and Palmer, I've got an eye on them for 29 if I want a route to Haaland. Rodgers and Enzo, don't like either of them, but probably more likely to sell Rodgers. Let's take a look at the 3 forwards and then what those transfers might look like. So moving on to the 3 forwards, again, I'll try and keep this nice and simple. I think I'm just going to keep the 3 of them. They've been fantastic for me, and I don't see any obvious routes or obvious players that I want to move to. In terms of players that I don't own that I do really like, there's 3 of them, Marmoush, Wissa, and Cunha. None of them have a great fixture this week other than Wissa. And I just think I would probably marginally prefer Cunha because of the penalties and the set pieces. So yes, I think Whistle would upgrade my team this week, but I don't desperately want to remove any of the 3 players, and I would still prefer Cunha, and I don't think it's the perfect entry point for Cunha. If you need a forward, by the way, this week, I would go and buy Cunha, but I don't need one this week because I'm happy with the 3 of them. So Isak and Wood are obviously playing against each other. I don't think it's a great fixture for either of them, but I like that Isak's at home, and Newcastle are often very good at home, and he is probably the most likely player for me to get the armband if I don't captain Salah at the moment. I think it is Isak, just because I think Isak is exceptional. He's on penalties, and I just think against Forest at home, Forest have been a little bit shaky in recent weeks. I know they won 7-0 against Brighton, but against Fulham, they should have conceded, I would say 4 goals would have been fair. They were absolutely battered by Fulham. The scoreline didn't reflect what I saw from the performance. And obviously they lost 5-0 to Bournemouth as well. Now, Bournemouth and Fulham are 2 very, very good teams, but so are Newcastle. And I just think there are some fragilities creeping in a little bit with Nottingham Forest. So I don't think Isak's a bad captaincy shout, but I just don't love it, I suppose. And then with Wood, Newcastle away is not a great fixture, but I have given up trying to predict when Chris Wood will return. I would look at this now and say that's really not a good fixture for him. But I've said that in so many of the recent weeks, and the man just continues to score. So at some point, you just have to trust him. And the fact that he's got Ipswich away in 29, he's at the moment arguably my best captaincy option in 29 if I don't buy Haaland. So I'm going to keep Chris Wood because he's brilliant, and he's got Ipswich in 29 and United in 30, which is back-to-back really good games. With Mateta, it's similar to what I said with Munoz. He's got Ipswich at home in Game Week 28. So the very earliest that I will sell Mateta is basically 4 blank Game Week 29. And there is a good chance that I do that because I want to try and field a semi-decent team. With Isak, there's a good chance that I bench him in blank Game Week 29 to protect the value. But if I do have a route to Haaland, and he is the only way of doing it, there is a possibility that I still do sell Alexander Isak. But then I'm almost definitely going to want him back for Game Week 30 and beyond. So it's about whether it's worth losing that value just to attack the blank game week. We'll obviously discuss blank Game Week 29 more in the coming game weeks, but I've obviously got to have an eye on it now as it's only in a few weeks. So I think that's it, basically. Yeah, I do really want Cunha in there. So what I'm looking at over the coming game weeks is probably Mateta to Cunha in Game Week 29. And then there's the possibility that Marmoush or Haaland come in for Wood or Isak around the blank as well. But I'm pretty happy with the front 3. They've delivered me so many points in recent weeks, so they're probably going to stay as they are. So that's the team as things stand. Let's take a look at those transfers in a bit more detail. Let's talk about the assistant manager as well, because I've currently got Arne Slot, and I think I'm going to end up removing him, and then show you what the team would look like after those transfers. So as I spoke about, my current plan is to sell Morgan Rogers to a Bournemouth midfielder, and at the moment that is Dango Ouattara for a couple of reasons. Firstly, he is the cheapest, and when I look at it overall, there isn't much to separate the 3 of them. Kluivert being on penalties and corners does make me think, am I being a bit silly here not going for the penalty-taking set-piece taker, who also is very good from open play? I just think that from open play, I do much prefer Dango, and to some extent, I prefer Semenyo to Kluivert as well. So it's about how much value I give to those set pieces and penalties, but he's also a lot more expensive. And so if I think Dango, Semenyo, Kluivert is very, very close, why not go for the cheapest one, who is currently playing as a number 9 and getting a load more chances than both Semenyo and Kluivert? He's hogging all of the big chances. He's really good in the air. I actually think his finishing has been pretty decent as well. He is a little bit more chaotic. And I would say if you put Kluivert and Dango in the same positions on the pitch, largely you would expect Kluivert to score more goals. But I just really like the idea of Dango for that price. And I do think that there is a chance that I want to get Erling Haaland at some point. And so having as many cheap assets in my team as possible just makes it a little bit easier to renegotiate. That's not what I mean. To move around the funds a little bit. That will make it a bit easier. So yeah, if I can take as much money out of as many positions as possible, I think that will overall improve the team in terms of flexibility moving forward. So basically, Rogers to Dango is quite likely and quite possible. I have just had a look though on Fantasy Football Hub, as I'll discuss in a second. Dango, actually, do you know what? Let's just do this now, because this is actually my recommended transfer, is to do Rogers to Dango. But as I've just seen, Dango might go up in price tonight. So I'm recording this Thursday morning quite early. Dango looks like he might go up, and then Rogers, I don't think he'll go down tonight, but he looks like he's going in the other direction. I don't think I want to wait on that one. Like, I can't really afford to lose much money when it's going to be so tight if we do want to try and squeeze in Haaland alongside Salah. If you do want to check out price changes, by the way, I'll just show you the ones that are listed for tonight. I don't know how that's going to look on your screen. But yeah, at the moment, Mateta could go up. That's very nice. But we've got Dango, Mbermo, Wissa, Matoma. Obviously, these are just predictions. I'd assess it closer to the price change deadline, which is either 1:30 or 2:30 in the morning. I can never remember with GMT and BST. But there are also quite a few price falls as well. Palmer looks like he could be going down again. Ahmad, Gakpo. So keep your eye on it closer to the price change deadline this evening. But that might actually force me to potentially move a little bit early on the Rodgers to Dango move. But that is one that I do want to make, and I think it will improve my team. The only other thing to discuss then is selling Arne's slot. So part of me just thinks, Ross, your team's not looking great for Game Week 29. Focus your transfers there and just hope that Liverpool beat City, because overall they should still be favourites for that game. And I could really do with the extra transfer not being used on the assistant manager, but my heart's telling me this isn't a banker win at all. And if Slot gets a draw or a loss, I mean, there's no table bonuses, so a draw's going to get him like 4 points, so 3 for a draw and then 1 for a goal, would be as low as it could be. I'd be really disappointed there. But at the same time, let's say Slot gets a 1-1 draw, and let's say Hertzler or Arteta get a win. Let's say Hertzler or Arteta get 8 or 9, and Slot gets 4, maybe 5. Well, then I probably would have just rather keep Slot, because I would have kept the transfer. Yes, Hertzler and Arteta outscored him by 4 points, but I've got an extra transfer, which then doesn't mean means I probably don't need to take as many hits ahead of 29. So I guess what I'm saying is if I'm going to move to a non-table bonus manager, such as Hertzler and Arteta, I need them to quite drastically outscore Slot. I need Slot and Liverpool to lose or draw, and I need Hertzler and or Arteta, whoever I go for, to get a massive 3 or 4-0 win for me to feel like it's a justified use of a transfer. And could that happen, by the way? Could City beat Liverpool, and could Brighton beat Southampton 3-0, or Arsenal beat West Ham 3-0? Absolutely, they could. So I am still leaning towards saying it's still worth a transfer even if I don't attack the table bonus and do go for a Hertzler or Arteta. I think Arsenal are probably slightly more sort of favourites in that game against West Ham than Brighton are against Southampton. But I would also say that West Ham are a better team than Southampton are. So I don't know who I would go for out of Hertzler and Arteta. Money's not going to be an issue, right? Because I'm going from Rodgers to Dango, which is a downgrade. And then from next week, from 27 and beyond, I'll get the money from the assistant manager back into my team, right? You don't lose that money. So money is not an issue here. So maybe Arteta for the home game would be the one if I'm going to back a non-table bonus manager. As you can see, though, the third option is going for that table bonus. So Glasner and Palace are 5 places lower than Fulham, which means that Glasner gets the table bonus. What that means is rather than 3 points for a draw, Glasner will get an extra 5, so 8 points for a draw. And rather than getting 6 points for a win, they get a 10-point bonus. So Glasner would get 16 points plus however many they get in terms of goals and clean sheets. So if Palace beat Fulham 1-0, that is a 19-pointer for Glasner. If Arteta and Arsenal beat West Ham 1-0, that would be, quick maths with FPL Raptor, that would be a 9-pointer. So it's 9 versus 19, right? You get that extra 10. So I just think it could be worth chasing the table bonus. But at the same time, if you told me that Fulham beat Palace 2-0, would you be massively shocked? 2-0 to Fulham against Palace. I wouldn't be massively. And then I get 0 points from Glasner. And then I would have blanks for both Munoz and Mateta. And do remember, I've got Munoz and Mateta in my team. And I'm benching Robinson. So I'm benching Robinson and I've got Glasner, Munoz, Mateta. If Fulham beat Palace 1 or 2-0, that is absolutely disastrous. That's a triple blank in my team, a blank for the assistant manager, and points on my bench for a highly owned asset. And it's a real possibility. It's how many eggs do I want to put in the Crystal Palace basket? A lot of people will say, where's McKenna? McKenna, I'm actually getting aggressive comments about not considering McKenna. I just don't fancy it. And I'm not saying that Ipswich don't have a very good chance of beating Spurs. They probably have an equally good chance as Crystal Palace do of beating Fulham. I just don't fancy it. And FPL should come down to gut feeling and what you want to do. And I just don't really like the idea of going for McKenna. Spurs are so difficult to predict. I would not be surprised if Spurs lose that game 3-0. And I wouldn't be surprised if Spurs win that game 5-0. I have no idea what version of Spurs will turn up. And so I just don't like backing for them or against them. I think they are so unpredictable. So that's my concern with it. It's just, I could see Spurs turning up. And they are getting players back from injury. They did look a little bit better against Manchester United. So yeah, overall, if I'm going to back a table bonus manager, I think I have narrowed it down to being Glasner. So, to recap my 3 options, keep Arne Slot, save a transfer and just hope that Liverpool do something. Go for a safe other manager, so transfer to probably my top 2 options would be Hurtsler against Southampton or Arteta against West Ham, or back the table bonus and go for Glasner against Fulham away and just really go for that massive score. And again, if Palace go massive and they win 2 or 3-0, I could get a 19-20 pointer for Glasner, a goal for Mateta, a clean sheet for Munoz. The opposite could happen to what I said. I said it could be a disaster, but that could be a season-defining moment if Palace win that game by 2 or 3 goals to nil. Do I expect them to? No. Fulham were sensational against Nottingham Forest, and they are a better team than Crystal Palace. But that's something you have to remember when you're doing a table bonus, you are backing an underdog. The very nature of going for a table bonus means you are backing a team that are probably less likely to win, or at least not favourites or strong favourites to win that game. So yeah, that's where I stand at the moment. Basically, I have no idea. I don't know if I'm going to keep Slot or sell him for a safer manager or go for Glasner. I tell you what, I can tell you where I stand right now. So let me go back to my team. Should be an updated graphic for you right now. So at the moment, I'm thinking I might just put all of my eggs in the Crystal Palace basket and just let my season potentially be ruined by Crystal Palace losing to and that is obviously an over-exaggeration, but it would be a bit of a disaster if I get a triple blank from my Palace. But like I said, the flip side is that could be a season-defining game week where I jump up to sort of, I don't know, could jump up top 40, top 30k if the 3 of them go huge. So at the moment, I'm thinking I might back the table bonus with Glasner. And obviously, I've penciled in that Dango move for Rodgers as well. And I think overall, then, the team does look pretty strong. Let me know where you stand on this table bonus thing. Whether you think in my position with Munoz and Mateta already, I should probably just go for a little bit of a safer bet with Arteta or Hurtsler. Or if you just think, do you know what, Ross? Just keep Slot. I don't mind that as an idea either. Again, if you want to see my final team, tune into the deadline stream on Friday. But there will also be a deadline decisions video tomorrow morning as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 26 team selection and a bit of a discussion around the assistant manager chip. Let me know what your plans are down below. And if you have enjoyed today's video, please do smash that like button and make sure to subscribe as well. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.